Hi and welcome to today's video. My name is Rita. This is my channel 10 Red Lipsticks and this is my first update for my Project Level Up project pan. So this is a project pan started by Sophie Alexandra. Apologies if you can hear the rain outside. We woke up with snow and it's been raining since then. So you might be able to hear it, but you might not, I'm not sure. So this project pan was created by Sophie Alexandra, kind of combining elements from different eyeshadow based project pans all into one to give you an opportunity to rotate through palettes, to hit some pans, to use the palettes as a whole, use every shade, and you know, do a few different things at once. So I think it's a really fun project pan, such a great idea. My Project Level Up Level 1 palette has been the Beauty Bay Neutral 42 pan colour eyeshadow palette. I think is like the full name of it on the website. And yeah, we have an exciting update today. So I'm here to update on level 1. Once you get beyond level 1, whichever level you're on, you're using every shade in the palette that many times, and whatever level you're on, you're trying to hit that many pans. So for level 1, we were trying to hit one pan and use every shade at least once. So I'm kind of sitting off to the side so I'll be able to put up pictures and show you what the palette looked like when we rolled it in. Which I had used it a couple of times, but not that many times. I got this palette last year, haven't used it a huge amount yet, but I can't say that anymore because here is what the palette looks like today. So not sure if you can even see. We have a little bit more use. We have used every single shade at least once, many of them more than once, and we have hit one pan. Let's see if I can get it to focus. So the pan that I've hit is in the shade Doll. It is a lighter shimmer shade. Sorry if you can see, I have nail extensions, but one of them literally just fell off like 5 minutes ago. I was hanging up the washing and it fell off. Anywho, so we have hit our goal. We have hit one pan and it's this shade Doll, which is a beautiful light shimmer. I have it all over the place today because I was very keen to hit this pan today. So here is what my focus shade looks like swatched. As you can see, it's an absolutely beautiful shimmer, really nice light shimmer. And I definitely think that light shimmers are going to be a focus for me in this project. Sorry, my neighbours are doing something. Apologies if you can hear that in the background. So really nice shade, and I've got it all over my lid today. The other shades that I'm wearing today are, I think, Petal here, Sepia here, Jet here, which I have just at the lash line, and was there anything else? Maybe another brown, but I can't remember which. But yeah, so those are the shades that I'm wearing today. So I'm only wearing this palette today. Of course, I did wear it both on its own several times and with other palettes several times. There are more mattes than shimmers in here, so I did find it helpful with some of my other palettes because I am doing No Pan Left Behind of my other palettes as well, that have, with the palettes that have more shimmers, to use them with this which has more mattes was very useful. Yeah, so I guess I have actually a lot of thoughts on this palette now, because I hadn't used it a huge amount before, and doing this project really has helped me get to know it better. Along with Doll, I'd say my other favourite shade would be Sparrow, which is just this gorgeous taupe shimmer. And I did consider using Sparrow as my focus shade, and then I realised that it would take a good bit longer to hit pan on it than a lighter shade, because for me, if I was using Sparrow, that would kind of be the focus shade on my lid, whereas with Doll I was able to have, you know, get through some of my No Pan Left Behind palettes, etc., but also use Doll in my inner corner. So yeah, I found that that worked quite well in terms of the specific goal of hitting pan. But yeah, I really like this palette. Pancake and Petal would definitely be up there, which are these two up here. This guy Pancake and this guy Petal will be up there in terms of my favourite mattes in the palette. But yeah, I think the whole thing is lovely. There are definitely a few shades that were difficult to use. So Cacao, Decadence and Jet have been kind of sitting there for maybe 10 days, 2 weeks as the only shades that I hadn't used. And then I used Cacao first, and then Decadence yesterday, I think, and then Jet today. And I wasn't too, I could have forced them into looks, and I kind of did that with Decadence, but I wasn't too worried about it because I knew that, I hadn't hit doll yet, and I was nearly there but not quite there. So that's kind of it in terms of what was kind of difficult to use. It is the darkest shimmers and the actual matte black shade, which I would expect. I would kind of always expect that to be tricky for me because, lighter shades are just much more my preference. Apart from that, like, I pretty much liked everything. Some of the shimmers definitely have different formulae than others. So Ice is a much less intense shimmer than some of these guys, where you can see like Ice kind of looks like a matte in this lighting, and then these guys down here are clearly shimmers. And then this guy Locket is kind of like a creamy formula, which is just a bit different, which I think is interesting. I would say I probably prefer these foiled shimmers more than the cream or than the more subtle shimmer of the Ice shade. Finger there. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I will put up on the screen how many times I used each shade, or at least how many times I think I've used each shade. So I have been writing in my diary every day which palette I've used. I will show you how many times I used this palette. I haven't counted it up yet, but I'll do that in editing, and I'll put on the screen how many days I wore this palette. So just down my diary I have, which palette I wore every day, and often it's a mix of 2 or 3, and sometimes it's just one. And then I also have these little pictures I've drawn of the palettes. Obviously it's backwards for you now, but or actually maybe I will have flipped it around. This is the picture for this palette. So I've documented that I've used Doll 13 times in order to hit pan, and then most of the other shades I used once, and some of them I used twice, and I think Sparrow and Petal I used 3 times. Now I think I'm missing 1 or 2. I did use this palette on last Saturday when I was going to my friend's wedding, and I just didn't have time to take a photo and fully document every shade that I used. I think I've remembered them correctly, but I may have missed one. And what else did I do? Oh yeah, I did my sister's makeup for that wedding as well. And I used the mattes from the Viseart Lila palette on both of us, but I also used mattes from this palette, and I'm not certain that I got all of them. So my numbers will be relatively accurate, but they could be missing a use on 1 or 2 shadows. I didn't use the shimmers from this palette that day. I was using, the Glaminatrix Glimmering Creatures shimmers, but I definitely could have. Like, this is a beautiful palette, and I think, doing this has really shown me it was not a mistake to buy this palette, even though it is so big. It's beautiful. It suits me down to the ground. Okay, some of the deeper shades, it took a bit of work for me to get them into looks, but I think it is a pretty well balanced palette, and it was not very difficult to use every shade. It just took a little bit of thinking on some of those deeper shimmers, and you know, me accepting reality that I had to use the matte black, which I think looks good today. You know, obviously it's just helping my lash line look a little bit more defined, and I didn't put huge amounts of effort into it. I just used an angled liner brush to put it close to the lash line. It's not super neat or anything, and I think it looks fine. So yeah, very happy with this. Absolutely love it, and so happy to have another eyeshadow pan in my collection. I'm just thrilled to bits. I've definitely heard of people able to hit pan in some of these shimmers, you know, with fewer than 10 uses. That was not the case for me. And, you know, it's not only today in order to hit pan that I used so much of it. You know, I've done this more than once as well, not just using it on the lower lash line and the inner corner and things like that. Though I will say using those denser small brushes has definitely helped me hit pan. But yeah, so I think the reality for me is I'm not someone who's going to hit pan with fewer than 10 uses unless it's a shade I've used a lot before the project begins. So I just have to accept that, and that's fine. I had loads of fun with this palette, and I'm so pleased that within 2 months I was able to hit my pan, because that is my goal for the year, is to hit 6 pans in this project. So that means I have to be hitting at least 1 pan every 2 months. So I'm so happy with that. So this is rolling out. We have completed level 1 and next up level 2. So let's see what's rolling in next. Okay, so I have gathered all the palettes that are up for grabs in this project, and I'm going to show you each of them. I'll pop up the name of the person who left a comment on the intro for this, saying that they, you know, I just listed off all the palettes that I was including or potentially including in this project, and they said that they would like to see them, so I'm going to show them to you now. So the biggest palette that I selected was the Beauty Bay Neutral 42. I deliberately chose that as the first as for level 1 because I was just like, I don't want to have to use these 42 shades 2 or 3 times, you know, in the later levels. So I have skewed this project to suit myself. I'm not randomizing from my entire eyeshadow palette collection. I'm randomizing from 15 palettes that I've chosen. So this one's done. We've got 14 left. So I'm going to show you each of them now, from biggest to smallest, like most pans to fewest pans. And then we're going to randomize and see which one comes up for level 2. So in total, this is 157 pans. I have absolutely made it easy for myself by picking more smaller palettes, but I have a few that I am slightly intimidated if they get pulled for, you know, level 2 or certainly level 3 or level 4. So yeah, let's get into it. 42 pans in the biggest, and then the next biggest, big jump down to 16s. This is the Nabla Side by Side palette, a beautiful neutral palette, and I thought this would be a lot of fun. It's a very usable palette. Definitely some deeper shades that I will struggle to use, but also some beautiful shimmers that I wouldn't mind trying, you know, working on and trying to hit pan in. So yeah, beautiful palette, really love it. And it is one of the possibilities with this project. Next up, we've got two 14 pan palettes, one from Catrice, or no, are they both Essence? No, yeah, one from Catrice, one from Essence. So this is the Catrice Next Gen Pro Slim Eyeshadow Palette, Next Gen Nudes 010 Courage is Beauty. And this is what it looks like. Lovely kind of rosy neutrals. These are smaller pans, so I was thinking they'd be a bit easier to hit, hopefully. And such beautiful everyday shades. Definitely a palette I was looking at for kind of years before I actually bought it, and an ideal color story for me. Next up, something a bit more fun is the Bambi Disney Classics Essence Disney Classics Bambi palette in, there's like, oh yeah, 01 Friends Till the End. So this is a bit more colourful, and it's one of those palettes that's like half colourful, half neutral. The gold, that's kind of okay. So it's half this kind of bright light blue and half these rosy neutrals that are just so beautiful, like really, really, really gorgeous. I love these shades. Two of the mattes, Deer and Flower, these like kind of cool tone browns, are such perfect shades, and the kind of shade that I wish was in more palettes, because obviously light warm tone browns are often there, and I do know that that obviously makes a cooler tone palette more accessible for people with warm undertones. Using a warm tone in your crease can, you know, stop cool tone eyeshadow from looking too ashy on lots of people. But for someone with cool undertones, cool mattes are something that I actually don't have as many of as I want, even though I have a lot of cool tone palettes. So lovely colour story and fun theme and all of that jazz. So another one with 14 shades. Next up, the Wet n Wild Heart and Soul Colour Icon palette. So this has 10 shades. This is the definition of summer to me. So, you know, it'll be a bit challenging if I roll this in next, but gorgeous colours and a light, you know, a smooth, lighter formula that, you know, you'd have to pack it on to get very intense colours. So I think still workable. Even though it's not the ideal time of year for me with those colours. Next up, a palette I have never used. This is the MAC by 9 Dusky Rose times 9 palette. It's kind of washed out there. Very neutral. Never used it. Given to me, decluttered by my mother-in-law. So very small pans, hoping won't be impossible to hit pan in these guys, but be interesting to try and pan a formula I've never even touched before. But yeah, I thought it was a very nice, very neutral palette, not too big and manageable, and no harm, you know, using every shade a couple of times and getting to know it better since it's new to my collection. Next up, another Beauty Bay palette. This is the Golden Age. Sorry, I was reading the wrong bit. I was reading down here. I should have been reading up here. The Golden Age. So this is a warm neutral colour story. I kind of hope I don't roll this in straight away because I just did a Beauty Bay palette. So I'd like to get a different brand, but this one's up for grabs. Beautiful, neutral, kind of all your basics colour story. Really, really nice. I've only used the palette once or twice, so maybe even only once. So no harm again to roll that in. Another warm tone neutral palette. This is the Essence Coffee to Glow palette. I love this guy. So nice. So it's warm neutrals. Where is the best angle? None of them are great. Warm neutrals. You do have this gross like Vaseline with lumps of shadow in its shade. I won't be using that, not even once. But every other shade is up for grabs, so you know, use them a few times, try and hit a few pans. This guy is very much cream shadow, and it's really beautiful on the lid. So really nice neutral palette, works so well. Next up, with 6 pans, we've got 2. So this is the Tartelette Jewel palette. These all have freaking shiny packaging and you can't see. So this is a much more cool toned colour story. These shadows are beautiful. The formula of some of the shimmers is just stunning. No idea how long it would take to hit pan in a Tarte shadow. I think probably quite a while, but beautiful shades and a smaller number of pans, so I thought it was still doable. And again, like I've had that palette for a year, but I haven't used it that many times, so it would take a while, definitely. And it would be good to get to know it even better. This palette, however, I know very well. This is the Catrice X Jenny palette, collab palette with a German influencer. Freaking stunning. Focus. I absolutely love it. As you can see, stunning duochrome there. So yeah, I think definitely that'd be one I would be trying to hit pan in. I've used this a good bit. It has just beautiful everyday tones, and then that duochrome. It's kind of the perfect palette, and they should make it permanent. And now we're down to the real little guys. So we've got two from Catrice, two 5 pans. So we've got 010 Golden Nude Look. This palette is perfect. It has everything I need for a warm tone neutral look. All the shadows work so well. The shimmers are beautiful, and it's not too warm. It is that nude, middle of the road kind of thing. It's so beautiful. I love it. It should get more hype than it does. Not that it gets no hype, but it should get more than it does. And then the second in the same line, so this is 020 Soft Rose Look. Beautiful palette. So I also, at first I didn't really think about this, but I've also put these 15 palettes into my No Pan Left Behind project, because obviously I'm not going to get through all 15 of them this year, and I don't want to not touch these palettes if they don't get drawn in this project. So this palette has already been drawn in my No Pan Left Behind. So I have used all of these shades once. Actually, I used a few of them twice, I think. I'm going to count that usage towards this project because I have been tracking it. If I wasn't certain or whatever, I wouldn't count it, but I'm certain I've used all of these shades once. So if I roll this in now, that's one use of all the shades ticked off already. I know some people might not do it that way, but for me, if I have it written down that this year I used all of these shades once, it feels silly not to count that towards this project. And it feels very silly to say, actually, I'm not going to touch these palettes because I would like my use to count in this project. So this is a good balance for me. If this comes up, I've only got one use left on all of them, and then obviously hitting the pans, the big question. So yeah, that guy. And then another 5 pan, we've got another Wet n Wild palette. This is also a Colour Icon, but this is the 5 pan layout. So this is Walking on Eggshells, the perfect neutral colour story. I have 3 versions of this palette because they have released 3 versions of this palette. I will show you what it looks like next to the 10 pan Heart and Soul. How can I do this? So there we go. That's the 10 pan Heart and Soul Colour Icon, and this is the 5 pan Walking on Eggshells Colour Icon. And just, this is like the iconic, beautiful Walking on Eggshells shimmer, rosy, very light, like that shell pink kind of thing. So beautiful. Yeah, love this colour story, and hopefully wouldn't be too hard to hit pans in them. Drugstore palettes tend to be a bit smaller, like a bit less product than higher end, so we shall see. And then I've got 2 drugstore or affordable quads. So first up is the Catrice Heaven Scent quad from the Caviar Gauche collection. I love this guy. I've got a bit of a dip in here, a bit of a dip in here, so hopefully it wouldn't take too much more use to hit a couple of pans in this guy. Absolutely love it. Stunning. Yeah, happy to get any excuse to use that. And then I've got this quad, from Lacura, which is the Aldi brand, and it's just called Quad. I have another one in the same format, and it's called like Rust Quad or something like that, but this one's just called Quad, and it is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk quad. So colour story I love. This is the second dupe of that palette that I own. I have one from XX Revolution as well. Yeah, I actually really like this formula as well. So yeah, those are the 14 palettes still up for grabs. I am going to pause the video now, randomize, because I do it on my phone, and then I'll be back in a second to talk about which palette is level 2. Okay, so here is the result of my randomization for level 2. So I probably should have gotten the palette before I started talking. So I am actually thrilled that it is one of the smaller palettes, because I do feel, it was quite a lot of work to use every shade in the 42 pan Beauty Bay palette. So we've got the Lacura Quad, and I know I just showed it to you, but it's this lovely, you know, neutral pink and brown palette. I will swatch it out for you. I have the Walking on Eggshells shade there. I'll just rub that away if I can. I'll swatch it out for you and show you, and then obviously I will go and take my pictures before I start using it, so we can see the before and after comparison when I hopefully hit 2 pans. And it does have a little bit of hard pan on the topper, so I'll have to scrape that off as well. Okay, so here are the swatches. Obviously just extremely neutral. Don't look at my face. Extremely neutral and very everyday shades. I'm thrilled just to have something so easy to reach for, that I just won't have to think about. Obviously, like, using each shade twice is going to take no time at all, and after that, you know, really tracking my usage in a very dedicated way won't be a huge concern. So the days where I'm in a huge rush and I don't have time to, you know, open my diary and check, ooh, which shades need to be used, it'll be so easy to reach for this and, you know, make sure I'm getting usage on the shades where I'm trying to hit pan. So which shades will those be? Interesting. I feel like the most obvious are the kind of standard matte, or sorry, standard shimmer shade and the pink matte. I've no idea how much use it would take on the topper, because I feel you do use less of a topper than you use of a more standard shimmer, so I'm not really sure how much use that would take. And just for me, the pink matte is, you know, more like my crease all over the place kind of shade, and the brown matte will be a bit more focused in the outer half of my lid, so I think it'll be easier to hit pan in the pink guy. I could randomize for which shades I want to focus on. I haven't done that. I've just, you know, it quite naturally emerged that Doll was a good shade to focus on with the, sorry, I'm looking at it because it's over there on the table beside me, was a good shade to focus on with the Beauty Bay palette, because as a lighter shimmer, it was easy to get use on it, you know, many days. But we don't have that kind of inner corner type shade in this palette. And I think focusing on two shimmers at once would be a little difficult. So I think this shimmer and this matte are what I'm going to go for. But we shall see, and it might be after using every shade twice, I realised, you know what, it's the topper, or actually I prefer the tone of the brown to the tone of the pink. We shall see. So yeah, that is so exciting. I will be back hopefully next month with an update on how level 2 is going so far, or how it went if I have it completed within a month. Unlikely, but I will definitely be back within 2 months, because that's my commitment on this project, that there will be an update at least every 2 months. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.